Good afternoon. UNESCO office in Almaty is launching the 13th webinar for museum professionals in Central Asia in South Caucasus. I remind everybody that we have a large webinar cycle. We have had a large webinar cycle. There are links that you can use to see previous webinars. Unfortunately, not all the webinars have been translated into English. Only where speakers were delivering presentations in English was their translation. Our today's meeting is not the last one, and as usual, you can watch out for updates on our activities on our website and in our social networks. We are providing links in the chat. Today's webinar is being hosted jointly with ICOM. This is our third joint webinar, and ICOM kindly finds several speakers for us with unique experience and competencies. But before I introduce our speaker today, I would like to give floor to Carlos Eduardo Serrano, who is a representative of ICOM Secretariat and coordinator of programs for capacity development. Mr. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Carlos Serrano. I'm the capacity building coordinator of ICOM. I'm the person in charge of organizing all the training programs for our museum professionals. First, I would like to thank the Almaty office of UNESCO for inviting us to be part of this series of webinars. This is the third webinar that we organize together. I must thank Egil and Meyer for all the organization and planning of these great seminars where we are presenting excellent museum professionals as today that we have Annemies. Thank you, Annemies, for being here as well. I will very briefly introduce ICOM for those who doesn't know who we are. So ICOM, if you can see in the screen, I mean, we are an international forum of more than 45,000 museum professionals all around the world. This is a space and a platform for the exchange of knowledge and expertise to set the standards for our disciplines. So just to let you know a little bit about the benefits of being part of ICOM, when you join ICOM, you join also one of our 32 international committees. These are the specialized committees that are divided either by discipline or by topics of museums. I'm highlighting here some of them. For example, the International Committee for Conservation. We have the International Committee for Marketing and Public Relations, the International Committee for Museums and Collections of Ethnography, or also for Museums of Natural History. So you join these committees and you can attend to different conferences, exchange knowledge. You can also access to different publications, academic publications, and other one of the other benefits of being part of ICOM is the training opportunities. Since 2018, we have been working like very hard to expand the number of programs of training programs. We have our regional workshops that we organize by continent, not only to raise capacities, to build capacities in the region, but also to create a network, like regional networks in Africa, in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, etc. We have our exchange programs where one professional can go to another country for a few weeks to work together with the museum staff of one institution. We are also starting to develop distance learning programs. We started with a series of webinars, but very soon we will have a MOOC about inclusion and accessibility, hopefully in September, October this year. So all of you are invited to join this MOOC that will be published in Future Learn platform. We have our ICOM International Training Center in China. We develop two international workshops every year. Half of the participants are Chinese and the other half are from the other regions. And for all these programs, as well as for the regional workshops, we provide full scholarships for the participants, especially for those that we from the developing countries. And we also have ICOM IMREC, that is the International Museum Research and Exchange Center. This has been recently signed, this agreement, but the idea is to develop a network of research to provide knowledge exchange as well, opportunities, and to encourage the research, the international research in the sector. And this is, we are now developing a pilot project of peer-to-peer collaboration with a museum in Nauru and some museums in Australia. So two institutions try to work together to collaborate. When one institution is having some needs, another institution will collaborate and give support. This is a pilot project. I hope it will work. And finally, I just want to say, if you want to be part of ICOM, you just need to contact your national committees. In the case of Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Kyrgyzstan, where if there is no national committee, you can write directly to ICOM Secretariat here in Paris. You see here the different emails. I will ask Majer maybe to copy and paste the emails to put it in the chat just in case you are interested. But thank you again, Annemies. Thank you very much. I'm sure it will be an excellent webinar. So good luck and thank you, everybody.
Карлос, большое спасибо. Я, наверное, попрошу вас все-таки.
Thank you. I would like you to give these email addresses, provide these email addresses to me. Thank you very much to Carlos for his presentation and for the role of ICOM in bringing together museum professionals worldwide and in our region in particular. And now I would like to introduce our speaker. It is Mrs. Annemies Broekgaarden. She is the head of education and community activities at Rijksmuseum. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right. This museum is located in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Her department offers various innovative products and services for all types of visitors and to make museum collection maximally accessible to the wide public. Her presentation will be on how to reach the audience in a creative way. If you have any questions or observations, you can write them in the chat. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Ms. Broekgaarden, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayer and Carlos, for inviting me to present this webinar. I feel privileged to be in connection with my colleagues far away. And as I said, I would have preferred to do it in person, but which is not possible at the moment. So I'm happy with all the technique that makes it possible to reach you from Amsterdam. So first, I would like to try to share my screen. And I hope, do you see my screen now? Yes, okay. Thank you, Maya, for your introduction. You introduced me well. I'm the head of the Public and Education Department, responsible for the connection of art and history to a wide audience from 0 to 100. And apart from that, I'm responsible for academic programs, digital learning, and also now for inclusion in our museum. So I'm going to take you on a journey that started for me in 2008, 5 years before the Rijksmuseum reinvented itself into a museum for a large audience. Let me see. Okay, I can't operate it myself now, so I have to indicate when you go to the next screen. Is that right?
Yes, it's right.
Okay. Okay, could you please go to the next screen, please? I'm very sorry for that, because it's always the case that if you practice, everything goes well, and then technique is always unpredictable. Oh, I also see that now you have different letter types, so that might also be a problem, but we'll see. I'm very sorry for this start. Let me give you first an introduction to the Rijksmuseum itself.
Позвольте сперва представить сам Rijksmuseum.
And maybe we can start the next video. The next slide, and operate the video. Okay, next slide, please. So this was a small introduction to the new Rijksmuseum in 2013 when we opened after a renovation of 10 years. A museum for everyone, a museum that wants to connect the art and history of the Netherlands from the Middle Ages to the present times to the citizens of the Netherlands and to the world. A museum that is located in Amsterdam, that is our capital city, a city of 800,000 inhabitants, with 81 museums and 55 galleries, a vibrant cultural life, at least before COVID, and with a lot of historical buildings that all originate from the 17th century, the great period of bloom of the Netherlands and especially Amsterdam. We have, what I say, 800,000 inhabitants in Amsterdam, 70 million inhabitants in the Netherlands, and 180 different nationalities living in Amsterdam. So you have now a little context of the environment we operate in as an international museum. Before I give you a small insight in this whole transformation from a classic, more elite building to the museum we have become in 2021, I would like to share with you the feeling that we would like to give the visitor, because one of the main goals was to make this beautiful collection accessible for a wide audience. And one of the goals is to let every visitor feel welcome in our building. And that we would like to share with the next video. So can I see the next video, please? I will see next if I would like to see the next video. It's maybe the best. Here you see the building, more than 100. Can I go back to the previous slide, please? Yes, here you see the building as it was when the Rijksmuseum just opened in 1885. So it is a building with a large history, designed by Kuipers and to hold our national collection. A museum that is built around its masterpiece. If we go to the next slide, you will see our Gallery of Honor with a lot of the famous paintings of Dutch masters. Can I see the next slide, please? Our Gallery of Honor and our masterpiece, The Night Watch in the End. Next, please. This is The Night Watch, painted by Rembrandt, one of the most world-famous paintings in the Rijksmuseum, painted by Rembrandt in 1642. And people all around the world come to the Rijksmuseum, especially to see this painting, and the collection of Vermeer, Jan Steen, Frans Hals, and all the other 8,000 objects we have on display in our museum. Next, please. Can I see next slide? Yes. As I told, 10 years in 2003, we decided to renovate the whole museum, and it took 10 years to make and invent a completely new museum. Next slide, please. Next slide. And in the 10 years that we worked towards a new and open museum, times had changed. Suddenly, we entered a digital era. And if I go to the next slide, you will see how it was before 2013. People were not using actively digital means. So we decided that with reinventing the new museum, we had to find a completely new concept on how to reach the public. In the next slide, you will see the opening in 2013, which was a big moment. And in the next slide, you see our mission. We redesigned our mission into connecting people, art, and history. And next slide, you will see that we made a very important decision in how to present our collections. Because before the reopening, we had the collections separated in different type of artworks, a history department. But now with the reopening of the Rijksmuseum, we made a very big decision to integrate all the different types of objects and have people make a journey from the Middle Ages to the present times within the context of its time. So you can make actually a journey through the time with seeing all different kinds of objects within the context of its time. So a new display. And in the next slide, you will see that we have this very important goal to make every visitor, whether it's a person from the Netherlands or outside the Netherlands, feel welcome in the museum and let it experience the museum as their museum, and to convey a feel for beauty and a sense of time. And in order to reach that, in order to find the right way to connect to the public, together we defined our core values, which are authenticity, quality, a personal approach. We want to be innovative in all our activities and products, and it has to be accessible. We call it simplicity. And these core values you will find back in everything we do, in our educational program, but also in the service we give to our visitor. And also an important decision was made by our board of directors in that education has become an essential task of the museum, because it isn't the display of all these objects meant to connect to the audience. And that's why we realized that the needs of our public are the starting point in thinking in how to connect. Next slide, please. So together with our management team, and we had a change in management team, and I have to apologize for the letters because I don't operate the presentation myself. It doesn't accept our letter type. We have a specific letter type of the Rijksmuseum, so it's mingled a bit. So I'm sorry for that, but I hope you can see it a bit. Together with our management team, we, apart from the values, we try to recognize what kind of groups of which target audiences we would like to reach. And we spend a lot of time in trying to get a good feeling of all the needs all these different types of targets group have when they enter a museum. And we started developing to open up the museum by means of programs and products based on the needs of our visitor. And to give you an example, for example, you all can visit the Rijksmuseum as an expert, but maybe if you are with your partner, you can, it's for leisure time. If you come with your family and children, you have different needs in the setting of a family. So we identified all these needs. And also we discovered that there are different needs with people. People want to be helped by means of text or by means of a person. So we made this chart in order to try to get a good overview of what the different types of needs people have when they enter a museum. And so that's how we started to design to open up the museum. If I go to the next slide. And also, apart from our main building, we have this building in the gardens of the Rijksmuseum that was also designed by Kuipers. And it was originally designed to be an art academy, both for art teachers and for artists. Since the 60s, when we had our art academy, it wasn't used in that sense anymore. But as I was asked to develop the policy and also all the plans for opening up the museum, I decided together with the mission of the main museum to continue with Kuipers, to go back to the original meaning of the building and try to use this original meaning for the contact with the visitors. I decided also to develop the Tekenschool and to give it back its original meaning, but in a contemporary way. But I will tell you later more on the concept of our tekenschool. If I go to the next slide, you will see some examples what we did. I think as one of the first national museums, we decided that every object, every of these 8,000 objects in our museum should have a text. And also each room should also have a text that gives the context to the object where you're looking at. So we developed for all these different types of objects in every room in the museum, we developed text. And also we did a lot of research on how we should write the text. What is the size of the text? What is the tone of voice of the text? And only with the goal that it would be as accessible as possible, also for people who do not have an art historical background. So we decided to develop different layers of information because we knew that some people only want to enjoy the beauty of the artworks. Some people want to have knowledge. And for all these different types of people, you have the choice in the Rijksmuseum to discover the artworks by yourself, but also to use a lot of other means and also programs and support by people that we have developed. So to give you another example, if you go to the next slide, we see small, we call them inzoomers. They are small research projects that you will find on 60 places in a museum that are mainly developed to see more of the object, but also if people want to know more, they can go in depth as far as they want. In the next slide, you see our a very important tool in order to be accessible as possible to a large audience, also an international audience, or a multimedia guide. And we developed a clear concept for this guide. If you can go to the next slide. Also with the help of digital means, we know that people first want to have an impression of an artwork, that people want to see more aspects of an object that they cannot see clearly with the bare eye, and also some people want to have more in-depth expert information. So we developed this concept that is also accessible for you, also in the Russian language, in our app. So we decided to develop this app in 9 languages, including the sign language tour, to make our collection as accessible as possible for also an international audience. And in the next slide, you will see the concept more presented. So the first layer is also developed with 3D audio, so you have a very good sound and also surround sound. The next slide, you see how we can make visible what is not visible by the bare eye. In the next slide, you will see our milkmaid, a painting of Vermeer. Can we see the next slide, please? The milkmaid, and also so you can see all the layers under the current painting that we discovered by research, which is also explained in this second layer. And in the third layer, the next slide, we have invited a lot of experts that give their interpretation on the objects. And they, of course, they are Dutch experts. They are very well known in the Netherlands, but they gave an in-depth layer to the knowledge of our collection. And recently we renewed our app. So in the next slide, you see the look and feel of our new app, which gives you far more opportunities also to design your own route through the museum, and also to have the route that fits with your needs at that moment. Next slide, please. What was also very important in this whole period of renovating the museum is that we realized that we had to digitalize our collection, which also gives a lot of opportunity for audiences to get access to our collection. In the next slide, you will see that we found a way and support to photograph our collection in a very high resolution and to develop our website in a way that it was accessible worldwide. So now we have 420,000 artworks available in high resolution that you all have access to and can use on our website, and especially in a tool that's called Rijksstudio, which gives the opportunity for everybody to really deep and to enter the artworks yourself. If I can see the next slide. And people also have the opportunity to make their own presentations in a digital way. So far, we have 490,000 objects in this Rijksstudio presented that you can all use. And in the meantime, 250,000 people have created their own presentations digitally, their own studios based on any kind of selection criteria you can imagine. And also we have more than 2.5 million downloads of this collection. And to give you an example, if you go to the next slide, you can see that, that it is possible to really come very close to the collection. And if I go further to the next slide, you will see the conviction of our director, Taco Dibitz, who says that our museum, in fact, every museum is all about images. And we want to share these images with everyone using the internet. And the technology helps us sharing our collection. And that is why we decided to put everything free of use, up to date, in the best quality on the website. And as you see here, you see if you use Google or any means that you see all kinds of images of the milkmaid, but some are of very bad quality. If I see the next slide, our director says, even if you want to use the milkmaid to produce toilet paper, we prefer that you have a good image. So that is the reason why we give away all our images free of charge to be able to be used in a creative way. Can I see the next slide, please? Because there you can see some examples of how people use the image of the milkmaid. Can I see the next slide, please? You see here, there are all ways people create new images of the milkmaid. And also during Corona times, people have used the image very much. In the next few slides, I would like to give you a small impression of how to use this website. So maybe you can click, and if you click further, here you see one of our still lifes. And if you click to the next slide, you can see how you can go in depth into to see really small details of the artwork on your screen. Also, the next slides will give you an impression on how deep you can get in our artworks. Can I go to the next slide, please? Yes, and please continue, because then you go into this artwork. See the insects in a very detailed way, the flowers. Thank you. Next slide, please. And here you see an example of a person called Esther de Jong, who has made their own collection based on the theme red. Or the next slide, you see there's someone who's interested in butterflies and has made a collection of its own butterflies. Next slide, please. Here is the collection of butterflies. But also you can use our images for all kinds of creative uses. For example, the next slide you see it's used for cars. Next slide, please. Or the next slide that you see that a fashion designer has used to create a collection. And also you see that one of our milk producers has used our collection to bring the collection really on the table of the public. So what we try to do by giving away our images is to create a love brand of the Rijksmuseum. Can I see the next slide, please? Sorry, can I see the next slide? Yes, so we want to create a love brand of the Rijksmuseum. So apart from the general public, for us, the schools are very important. Next slide, please. Schools are very important for the Rijksmuseum, as actually, as every child in the Netherlands is obliged to go to school, it is the best way to reach a great variety of the public, regardless of their cultural background or their social background. And our message to schools is that we have the most beautiful treasures and most exciting stories to open up for the children. So we offer a great variety of guided programs where no transfer method is ruled out. And we always develop our programs together with the teachers and the pupils. So we develop demand-driven, based on the needs of the school teachers and the children. And they all programs, they correspond with the school curriculum. And we receive 28 classes per day on a regular day. So altogether, we reach 200,000 school children in a year. And I must say that was in 2019, just before Corona. Next slide, please. We offer programs for children from 4-year-old. Next, please. And for the small children, we use a lot of theatrical means to involve the children in our collection, which you can see on the next slide. So from 4 years old, but also we receive high school children that you see on the next slide, and preferably guided by humans, because we still think that the best way to interact with our collection is by means of people, because they are the most interactive tool that can adapt to the needs of the public. But we have also realized that not every school is ordering a guided program. And that's why we have been thinking a lot on how to motivate children that do not choose for a guided program. And that's why we developed a new tool, which is called the Snap Guide. And the Snap Guide is a web-based tool. And if we go to the next slide, you can see the choice that is based on the popular influences that the children really look up to, and based on themes that fit with these influencers. So you see an influencer who is very is an activist on the field of sustainability, or a person who is struggling with his gender or with his background. So all these influences, they are connected to themes and to collection. And actually the children choose one of these influencers as a guide, but are activated to make their own videos or their own vlog that they have to send back to the teacher, who can use it in the classroom. And the next slide, you see, when we launched this program, more than 7,000 school children in 1 year used this tool, and they, most of the time, they were so enthusiastic that they chose to take at least 2 tours. And also we've got feedback from the teacher that they could use the material that the children made, because they have to use their own phones to make small video blogs that the teacher can use it in the classroom. So it was a very good way for both to interact and to add something to the class, to the method in the classroom. Well, in the next slide, you see that we also have area for the children to interact and to relax, and especially for the children who come from far. Next slide, please. And you can go to the next slides and I will talk. Yes. And the next slide, you will see that we have a special bus program where we have a sponsor who provides us with transport to get children from the whole of Netherlands, because we have a national goal to really reach a national audience. And in the next slide, you see the campaign, because what we want is that every child in the Netherlands, once in their life, that they will stay eye in eye with our most important painting of the Rijksmuseum of Rembrandt. Also, a lot of attention we pay to creative ways to reach families. And we know that families are very important to receive. Also, when children are enthusiastic, you create a positive audience for the future. So we have different means. We have these interactive guided tours where we use a lot of sensitive materials and also different layers of information, so that it's interesting both for the parent as for the child. We have what you saw, the guides that are means to stimulate the conversation between the parent and the children. And also we created a family quest, which is a digital tour that you have to play in teams. So there's a challenge to really find an answer that you can do within your family and with a reward in the end. And that is a very good way to get involved as a family and look in a very creative way to our artworks. And also in our picnic, which is the next slide, we have creative activities free of charge that are accessible for all in the weekends. Well, and then maybe a little bit extra information on the tekenschool. I already introduced that the tekenschool has been developed since 2008 with a specific goal. We know that an active interaction with art helps a lot of people to get more close to the artworks. So we decided that in this building, learning to watch by doing would be the main goal, with the collection of the museum as a starting point, and with the goal also to enhance the visual literacy and the historical knowledge. So in this building, we develop programs that take at least 2 hours, always guided by or an actor or a workshop docent that gives an in-depth experience with the artworks, but in an active way. And in the next slide, you see some examples of programs we developed for different target groups. So you see in the next slide, you see workshops in the visual art studio for children, for primary schools in the next slide, the secondary schools. Maybe we can go through these slides to give you an impression by means of images. And we have a special program called Expedition Rijksmuseum, which is an area where we have even a theater and with 4 lessons at school in order to bring the stories alive of a very important historical era that the children have to learn at school obliged. You see they're even using costumes in this program, and it's a creative way in order to connect knowledge to the objects, to make and to bring the objects alive for the children. And this project has been the winner of the ICOM and SICA Best Practice Award a few years ago. And also the whole concept of the Rijksmuseum was also included in the Best Practice Awards of ICOM. At the tekenschool, we develop and we offer programs for both children, but also adults. So we program 7 days a week. Here you see some classes in the evenings. We have workshops, but also courses, also year courses for adults, both on art and on photography, which you see in the next slide. Also, what we do is to give a lot of attention to intergenerational learning. And if I go to the next slide, we have workshops for families and children. Can I see the next slide, please? And the next slide, these are the photography courses. They also take place outside. But also we try to involve whole families. And for example, in the next slide, you see an example of a program we make on to understand Rembrandt better. So it's called Photography Like Rembrandt. And then the families, they interact and they practice with different forms of using light as Rembrandt did. And then the workshop teacher takes them to the galleries and to study the way Rembrandt used light in his pictures. And in the end, they make a photograph with in the way that using the light as Rembrandt did. And also with light, we use workshop for schools. You see a green screen background in order to use collections in the Rijksmuseum to interact with children and give their own theme to the program. And in the next slide, you see the way that we use creativity also in our main building. We have different weekends that we use creative activities. We have drawing activities in a drawing festival each year, where in many places of the Rijksmuseum, we have people drawing or people creating, like you see on the next slide, like a 3D street painting outside of the Rijksmuseum. Can I see the next slide, please? Or drawing activities guided by workshop docents in the weekends, which you see on the next slide. And in the next two slides, you will see our team of teachers and guides that we use for the 350,000 people that we give a guided program each year. As I said, the guides for us are very important because they are the most flexible means between the artworks and the audience. Can I see the next slide, please? Next slide, please. This is our team of docents. Now I would like to go, if you go slowly through the slides, I can give an explanation. Of course, the whole world stood still when COVID entered all our countries and we had to close down. So that gave us also the opportunity to find creative ways to be still in contact with our audience. So we moved a lot online, I think like everyone did all around the world. So we made a 3D experience of our gallery of honor. We noticed that all the schools moved to homeschooling and we invested in trying to have a clear idea of the needs of schools. You can slowly go through the videos and the slides and I will talk. So these needs of schools were the starting point for us to find new ways in connecting to people. And we noticed that from the contact with teachers, that the teachers had to focus more on language and mathematics, and that what we could do is to bring creativity into the homes of the people. So of course we used our website and Rijksstudio in order to make new selections of programs that we could bring into the homes of the people. If you can go to the next slides. So we try to make the connection with the information that the teacher had to teach in the classroom, and we try to sustain that with images and also experience, also by means of giving online masterclasses, which you will see on the next slide. And we found new ways in order to give workshops online. So we trained our teachers to develop digital workshops, and also in a way that we interact with the students through the screen. So in the next slides, you see an example of our online workshop where people were also excited to use our collection in a creative way. Please go to the next slide. So everything was turned online. Next slide, please. These were the online masterclasses. You can slowly go through the images. Yes, thank you. And also for families and children who were at home suddenly in this lockdown, we also started to develop creative workshops for families and children that were much appreciated. And we gave manuals and tried to think from our collection, but also realized that people had to use the limited means at home. We created games, we created explorer programs in order to explore our collection, like you see here. And also we cooperate already for a long time with a lot of image makers and magazine makers. And we decided to connect digital films with these comics, and all for the children that were at home and that were highly appreciated. And we created a game, a digital game in our 3D environment that we created, called a key challenge that was very successful. So we stayed and we stick with our starting point, that the audience remains starting point for everything we do. And we noticed that it was very easy to connect the different types of programs we made also for different target groups that suddenly mingled together. So the cross-selling never worked so well. So what did we learn from this whole period of the lockdown? That was that our target group definitions changed, that we connected through our audience also by use of social media, that there were new needs that led to new products, and that creativity and play were the biggest needs by people, that schools focus on language and mathematics, and that we have to fill the gap of creativity, and that people are inside screens, behind screens all day, and that we have to find new ways to activate them, but that museums can motivate and inspire, and that they can give hope. To the next slide, you see we are open now again, and we have a new exhibition on slavery that attracts a lot of attention. And also we decided that when we were open, that is very important, that also it was important to connect with people in a creative way in the art gallery. So this is a project where you're look at me now, where people and children try to use the learnings of our exhibition on slavery into their personal experience with the theme, and to bring that to a creative a product that can be shared also in the museum with the public. So finally, I will give you two examples of ways that that our collection is used by artists in a creative way. But I have to look at you, Maya, because I think the time is running short now. So you have to tell me if I can show these two examples.
I think that we actually have 4 questions so far. You can answer them and then continue, or then, no, Majer, let's continue. Okay, let's go ahead. Continue, please.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah, you just calmly finish and then we'll switch to Q&A.
Okay. Well, then I'll finish, and then maybe I'll save a few of the videos for if we have more time. because I have a video from an artist that uses our collection in a very creative way. And I wanted to share with you what we do with our Rijks Studio Award, which means that we try to activate people worldwide to use our images in order to make new creative products. So if the person of the technique can switch to the slide called Key Conditions for Effective Education, then we will go to the Q&A and we will see if there's enough time to show you those two projects that I could share if there is time. So maybe you can continue now to the next slide called Key Conditions. So you have to go through and I go back. Yeah. Next one. Next one, please. Next one, please. Next one, please. Because I would like to finish, because if I go back to the theme of this presentation, it is how to reach your audience in creative ways. And I think what is very important to share is, if as a museum you really want to have an active connection between your public and your collection, education and educational means are very, very important. And I know also in the Netherlands that not every museum director is convinced that that is important. So if I have to sum up the key conditions for effective communication, for effective education, first of all, it's that it's very important that it's also the director's conviction that education is a key priority, and that the museum is in the first place, meant as a presentation place for its collection. Also, the position of the education department, it should be on a very crucial position in the Rijksmuseum, in the museum, and also you need budget and creative staff. What is important, I noticed, is when we started to reinvent the museum, is to formulate together shared values, because in your educational program, you can present values, but that you have to find it back in every aspect of the museum. Also, it's very important that you team up very closely to the marketing and development departments, because what you promise the public has to be realized when the public enters your museum. And very important is also to find partnerships, because sometimes education usually costs money to develop, but there are a lot of partners where you could team up with that have also goals to reach the audience, that can also help you to finance your goals your goals of developing products. Which I can show you also. Maybe I can show that last film, because it's after this slide. It's a way that we want to, with the opening, we wanted to bring as much as possible people in close contact with our night watch, and to give the awareness that the night watch was presented in the Rijksmuseum. So with our partner ING, which is a big bank in the Netherlands and one of our main sponsors, they had this idea to create this viral movie that was seen all around the world, which was a win-win situation, because we could never have had the money to develop such a product, but to team up, they developed a product. And it gives visibility to the bank, but also to our museum. So maybe before we go to the discussion, I would like to show this last video, Inspiration for Dutch Citizens, that was made by ING. So maybe you could start that video.
ING is the main sponsor of the Dutch Rijksmuseum. Now the museum is reopening after a decade of renovation, ING wanted to claim their sponsorship. After 10 years, the wondrous works of the Rijksmuseum are back. So ING took the most famous painting of all and let it return. heroes were back.
Okay.
And the next
Thank you.
morning,
Maybe you can
it was
stop
the
now.
top of the town.
You can stop now, please. The video. Yes. Okay. I think concerning the time, I would leave it now by this and turn to the discussion and questions. And if there's more time, I can show you the Rijksstudio Award project and also the way artists use our collection. But I leave it up to you, Maya. I give the floor to you now.
Thank you very much, Annemies. We have collected a few questions, so let's start them. And of course, these questions were posed through the duration of your presentation. The first one is on ethics. When you spoke of the images being uploaded for free access, and Yurzan Kuchukov is asking how ethical it is when it comes to the memory of Vincent van Gogh. If a package of milk with his work will be found in a garbage bin, and he thinks it's not right, what would you say to that?
Well, our conviction is that our collection can be used as people want. And it's, for us, it was a way, because everybody uses music in his home. It was a way also to enter our collection on the table of people who maybe never have access to a museum. Yeah, ethical. I think if you publish your images in a newspaper or a magazine, that also will end in the garbage bin. I think a lot of products will enter eventually in the garbage bin. So that to us would not be a reason to give the opportunity for people to use our images.
Спасибо. Вот следующий вопрос.
Thank you. Another question from the same listener. Yes, the museum in Budapest has an option when an individual route is formed by floating up windows, or the visitor sees floating up windows and forms his own route. How effective is that?
I'm sorry, I think I do not understand the question correctly. Use window, I'm sorry.
Так, может быть, мы господину Алмакучукову дадим...
Maybe we should give Mr. Almagochukov ask his question with his voice. Is that possible? I'm asking our IT experts. And meanwhile, we're checking on that. Next question. What's the average time visitors spend in your museum?
That differs a lot, but it's more than we expected. I think the average time is about 3-4 hours. And of course, schools, they come with a program. So it depends if they have a program of 2 hours, they are 2 hours, but sometimes they are 1.5 hours. But I think the average social visitor stays around 3 to 4 hours, if it also includes a visit to a restaurant.
Хорошо.
Okay, good. Another question. This one is on competitive advantages of your museum. You mentioned that only in Amsterdam alone, there are 81 museums.
Yes.
And there are other famous museums as the Hague Museum with the famous paintings there. How do you attract the audience in such a strictly competitive community? If you could tell us about that.
Yes, well, first of all, we have a unique collection that cannot be seen elsewhere. So everybody wants to see the Night Watch. And so the Van Gogh Museum has, of course, the Van Gogh collection, which is unique. So there are more museums where you can find unique artworks. As we have worked towards opening up the museum to a wide audience and also actively program for all these different types of audiences based on the needs, we have been able to develop our audience as it was when I just arrived, and we had only a small wing opened, and as it was in the old times, we attracted on average 900,000 to 1,000 visitors a year, and a little bit more if there was a blockbuster. But now in 2019, we grew to an average of 2.6 million, which was incredible. So we were thinking of how to manage this large amount of visitors. And it is by really trying to think how we can connect to people in a contemporary way, how to find an answer on all the different needs of all the different types of audiences, and give the trust that is really worth to visit us and to return to the visit. So have an active programming, so it's also worthwhile to come back. And to give you an example, when I just entered the museum, we attracted around 30,000 school children yearly, which we have been able to, by building up relationships, listening very carefully on what the needs of the teachers were and all the different types of education. So we grew from 30,000 school children a year to 200,000 school children a year. And also we measure how content the visitors are. And also we learn from that, because the criticism we take back to the drawing table to invent new ways to connect. So we take the audience and also the comment of the audience very seriously. And that means, for example, with schools, if teachers are content, they want to come back. And so you build up a very consistent audience over the years. So we worked hard for that since the reopening, and I think it pays off, because more and more people they see the Rijksmuseum as the place to be, also young people, and in the meantime also because of we had a lot of international exhibitions that were also communicated internationally, that attracted also audiences from outside the Netherlands. Means that it comes in all kind of guides, and on website there our museum is recommended, which means that you have a growing number of visitors. So it's a combination of what we offer in the means of exhibitions, but also in the means of educational offer and communication and marketing. So it's a mixture of that. And also to use our partners in a creative way. For example, this movie I finished with, that we created with ING, was also a very important tool in making our museum known in many countries. I think it was about in 60 countries this video was spread and seen by people through TV and also through the internet. Which means that the Rijksmuseum becomes on top of mind of a lot of people.
Спасибо за подробные ответы.
Thank you for detailed answers. Now, in continuation of your previous answers, some clarification questions. The first one, when you were asked about the average duration of a visit in your museum, could you tell us that this number has changed compared to the period before renovation? So do people spend more time after the renovation? That's the first question. Second, you said that the number of visitors after the renovation has practically tripled. And now, due to that, do you see, to manage such large numbers of people, do you plan introduction of limitations as per the number of visitors, or using a format of organized groups of visitors as the Louvre Museum does? That's the second question. And now the third question. While the renovation was ongoing, where did you keep your objects for a decade? And who made sure they were safe and secure in that period? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for these questions. To answer the question on the duration of the visit, yes, the duration of the visit has grown after the reopening of the museum. Also, because we put a lot of effort in the environment, so it's by the way we present our objects, it is a very comfortable way in order to look to our objects and have enough opportunity to take pauses in our restaurant, which is a very pleasant place. So we notice people take more time. And as we have this multimedia guide, if people do it by their own, they have their own guide with them. So we notice that people do a tour, sometimes go to the restaurant and take another tour. And as we have programming like talk shows, etc., people tend to also attend those. So that means altogether that the duration has grown. I don't have figures of the duration so much before the reopening, but we know by measuring that it's now around these 3 hours. The average is about 3 hours. Yes, before COVID starts, actually the end of 2019 or 2020 actually, we had installed a special working group, and I'm part of that group. And we were thinking of how to manage these enormous growth of visitors in the museum, because of course in the beginning we wanted this growth, but as the museum was built for a maximum of about 1.6 million visitors, and of course there are some areas of the Rijksmuseum, like the Gallery of Honor, that every visitor will see, we noticed that it became too busy. So we were like designing ways to control the crowd. And actually we started to manage the crowd, and then COVID came and we were forced to close down. And when we open up also now, we also have to manage the crowd. So COVID helped us also to develop tools in order to do that. And that means that now people have to reserve their visit. They have to enter for blocks. And we already said that that is what we are going to continue to do. And also that you can steer opening up galleries where it is too busy. So there are different ways by means of offering programming on certain times, or steering reservation in time blocks, and even maybe connected to a financial reward. Like you also have with the booking, for example, more demand means a higher price. So we are also thinking of these kind of solutions. And luckily enough, so far, we have not been forced to close parts of the museum. But I think if the whole world turns back to normal and there is still a growth of visitor numbers, yes, then we have to really actively take measures in order to find, well, we did some research and we know that we can hold a maximum of about 3.5 million people if we control it in a very strict way. But also then we have to look carefully on how to influence the routes of the audience in order to make it for everyone a pleasant visit. So yes, we on many ways, also digitally and also with heat maps in the museum, how we control on the spot the behavior of visitors in the museum. We are looking to all those aspects in order to allow a growth of visitors, but at the same time guard the limits to what is safe for the collection and also pleasant for the visitor. That was question 2. And then you asked about the objects in the times that we were closed. We had hired a former bank location in the middle of the Netherlands, in the outskirts of the Netherlands. That was a safe place where we guarded all our collection in the meantime. And now we just opened up a new collection center that was built in the meantime, designed and built in the meantime, in Amersfoort, in the middle of the Netherlands. a completely sustainable building that not only holds the collection of the Rijksmuseum, but also of the open air museum, of our Paleis het Loo, another museum, and also our national heritage collection, which is an enormous building that has been opened now just a few months ago, or is not officially opened yet. And that is where we have just moved all the collection to right now. And that is the state-of-the-art building with the climate-wise also top of the bill. So that is the new place where our collection is held.
Спасибо большое еще раз за подробные ответы. Вот последний вопрос, который приходил в чат.
And the last question, thank you for your answers. The last question, how many people in your department and in the museum work on creating online content and online products that we saw in your presentation?
Well, there are two departments working on it. It's a digital department that's part of another that is more for the hardware. So I think on the programming, that is part of my team, and my team consists of 30 people. So I have a large education department that is quite unusual for most of the museums. But as I said, it is a very key priority in our museum. So we have a large staff. And actually all these staff members, they do not exclusively develop offline or online. So it's a combination. So we do it partly ourselves. So all our educators also develop digital means together with the people of the more hardware staff. But also we hire people from outside. So for example, this Snap Guide is a new tool. So then we cooperate with specialists on that field and try to incorporate the knowledge afterwards in our own team to develop programs further. But very often we connect and we team up with organizations that are specialized in these different types of products. But the content, we always provide the content. So we are always involved in developing the content for all these types of products. So I hope I've answered it in a correct way.
Yes, indeed. I think the answer has been answered. As we have no further questions, we have one outstanding question regarding the comparison with the Budapest Museum and individual guides. Kenjibek Makuchukov, could you rephrase your question? I can speak now, right? Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon. Thank you for this great presentation. With regard to the Budapest Museum, at the entry to the grand hall, there is a big sensor screen about 20 by 7 or 20 by 10. And there are pop-up windows with various exhibits. You press on the exhibit and the screen shows the identifier, the ID number and the hall and its code. And the person who is interested in that particular exhibit, he builds his own route in accordance with the time available. And so my question is such opportunity available at Rijksmuseum? The opportunity of building your own route using a sensor screen and that gives pop-up windows with exhibits. Is my question clear?
Yes, but you mean it not on the app, but physically in the museum. Is that right? You mean is there a place in the museum physically where you can compose your own route? Is that your question? Because on the website it is possible, but not in the museum itself.
It is physically located in the museum inside, and there is a big, huge screen
Yeah.
sensor screen, and you could make your options, find your options, and complete your own itinerary according to the time you have.
Okay, no, we do not have that. I know that before I started working at the Rijksmuseum in 2008, that there had been an opportunity by means of computers in the museum to choose your own objects that you would like to see. And the computer rendered it into a guide that you could print and take it as a print into the museum. Okay. But then we noticed that it was not a very successful tool, so they removed it. But that was before my time, so I have not experienced that tool. I only know that in our app, it is possible to compose your own tour and to find it, because we have wayfinding now in our app. So if you download the app, so that you don't have to hire the device in the museum, but you can also use your own smartphone and the wayfinding, that there's an opportunity to select your own collection and being guided by it by your app. So actually it's a little bit the same, but we use different tools for that. So there is an opportunity to compose your own tour, but in a different way.
Thank you.
Is that an answer to your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Our time is out now. We're out. Our time is moving to its close. Thank you to Annemies for very detailed answers. 2 questions. Also, big thank you to Carlos Serrano, because I think it's our last webinar in our list of joint webinars with ICOM. It was great working with the speakers that you found for us. It was indeed an absolutely new level. Very interesting talking. It was very interesting talking to them. Carlos, if you would like to give your closing remarks, you're most welcome.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank Annemies. I'm sure everybody here can share with me the feeling that it was a very inspiring presentation. And I think that's the most important thing, seeing all the work of the Rijksmuseum. It's quite exciting, and see how what we can do with a little bit of creativity. So thank you very much, Annemies, for being here, for giving the time to share this with us. And again, thank you to UNESCO Almaty. Yes, this is the last webinar of this series, but I hope it's not the last webinar between our 2 organizations. I think it has been a great experience. So thank you very much, Egil, for inviting us to do this, and to Maya for all the organization, and of course to all the technical team that helped us during all this process. I hope we meet again soon, and for the participants, I hope you will continue joining all the webinars organized by UNESCO Almaty. Bye.
Okay, thank you all for listening, and thank you for meeting you. Bye-bye.
Я в конце только скажу, что у нас в июле других вебинаров пока не
In
запланировано.
closing, I would like to say that we have not planned webinars for museum professionals in July. We'll have a small break. We have planned several webinars for this year, for August and other months, but webinars will not be as numerous as in the first half. The recording of this webinar will be available in English and Russian on our channel, and all registered participants will receive all links. If you would like to study all topics that we covered today in a deeper way. Thank you very much to everybody.